The call came on a Thursday morning in August. It came to Carol Reardon first, not to her father. Carol was 41 years old and lived in Coffeyville, 18 miles south, and she had been handling the paperwork for the sale of 12 acres her father had agreed to sell to his neighbor, Dale Putnam, at $7,600 per acre. The caller was a title officer named Sandra Pruitt in Water Valley. She said she was running the title search and had found something she needed to discuss before the transaction could proceed. She said, "There's a mortgage lien on the property from 1988, First Southern Agricultural Bank, $47,000. It's never been released from the record." Carol said that wasn't possible. Sandra said, "I know, but it's still showing. And when I called the bank, they're Meridian Agricultural now. Their records department said they have no documentation of a satisfaction." Carol said, "My father paid that loan off in 1991. Sandra said, "I believe you, but right now, legally, the lien is still there." Carol called her father. That is how Thomas Reardon, 67 years old, 34 years on 83 acres in Yalobusha County, Mississippi, found out that a debt he had paid in full on September 14, 1991, 31 years, 10 months, and 17 days before, was still attached to his land. Thomas Eugene Reardon enlisted in the Army in 1974 at 19, the year after the Paris Peace Accords. He was stationed in West Germany for 2 years, saw nothing of combat, and came home in 1976 with a different understanding of what he wanted. He worked 3 years in a furniture mill in Oxford. He was good at it. He did not want to spend his life doing it. His father had rented farmland in Yalobusha County for 22 years, paid his lease every season, worked someone else's ground his entire adult life, and died in 1984 without a deed to his name. Tom had watched that from childhood. His father had not complained about it. His father had not spoken about it much at all. But Tom had seen what a life of rented land looked like at its end, and he had decided before he turned 30 what he would not repeat. He bought 83 acres in 1979 with $22,000 saved from the mill work and a VA loan for the balance. He was 24 years old. The land was mixed timber and pasture, clay soil on the low ground, a creek running along the south fence line. He cleared 18 acres in the first 3 years. He put the rest in cattle, 12 head to start, 24 by 1987. He made every payment on the VA note for 11 years and retired it in full in 1990. He married Martha Lee Cutts in 1981. She was 27. She kept the household accounts from the first month of their marriage and maintained a filing system in the spare bedroom that organized every financial document by year, receipts, tax returns, loan statements, correspondence, from 1981 until the day she died. She was precise the way people are precise when they understand that imprecision is a kind of negligence. She died of a heart attack in December of 2019 at 65. Tom told anyone who asked in the months after that she had been the organized one. He meant it as the highest thing he could say. In 1988, a drought year, Tom had taken a $47,000 operating loan from First Southern Agricultural Bank in Water Valley. Loan number 88-4471-TREV. Terms, 36-month repayment at 9.5% interest. He made every payment on schedule without exception. He made the final payment on September 14, 1991. The amount was $4,388, the remaining principal and accrued interest to that date. The bank officer who processed the payment was named Gerald Wofford. He had worked at First Southern for 14 years. He generated a satisfaction of mortgage, signed it in front of Tom and Martha, and handed Tom the original. He told Tom he would file the satisfaction with the county recorder within 30 days. He did not file it. Gerald Wofford died of a stroke in March of 2008 at 61. The carbon copy of the satisfaction was either lost in the transition when First Southern was acquired by Regional Farm Credit in 1999, or was never properly filed to begin with. No one had looked in 31 years because no one had had reason to. Martha had put Tom's copy in the filing system the day they came home from the bank. The 1991 folder, September. She had labeled the envelope in blue ballpoint, Loan 88-4471, paid in full, 9/14/91. She had folded the document in thirds, slid it into the envelope, and filed it where it would wait. It waited 31 years. Meridian Agricultural Bank had passed through 3 acquisitions since the 1988 loan was originated. First Southern had become Regional Farm Credit in 1999. Regional had been absorbed by Delta Consolidated in 2011. Delta Consolidated had merged with Meridian in 2018. Each acquisition had involved a document migration, analog records scanned, indexed, and transferred to successive systems. The 1988 loan file for Thomas Reardon had survived those migrations in partial form. The satisfaction of mortgage had not survived them at all. Meridian's records showed an active lien. When Sandra Pruitt called their records department, a clerk confirmed it. No satisfaction on file. The lien was live. The bank's response to Carol's follow-up call was routed to their legal team within 4 days. The legal team's letter arrived at Tom's house 11 days after that. It was signed by an attorney named Douglas Crane, a partner at a firm in Oxford that had represented Meridian and its predecessors in lien and loan matters for 9 years. The letter said the bank had reviewed the 1988 loan file and found no satisfaction of mortgage. It said that if Mr. Reardon believed a satisfaction had been executed, the bank would require examination of any documentation he held. It said the bank's position was that the lien remained valid and in force. Tom's daughter drove him to Oxford 4 days after the letter arrived. He brought the envelope from Martha's filing system. He had not opened the filing cabinet since the previous winter, when he had gone looking for a property tax receipt. He had found the envelope exactly where Martha had put it. He had taken it out, unfolded it at the kitchen table, read it, and refolded it along the same creases. He brought it in the envelope. Douglas Crane's associate examined it in a conference room on the 3rd floor of a building on Lamar Avenue. 7 minutes. Photographs taken of front and back. He said the bank would need time to analyze the document. 3 weeks later, the bank's response arrived. It said that Gerald Wofford's signature on the document did not match the signature specimens in the bank's current authentication records. It said the document format differed from First Southern's standard 1991 satisfaction templates. It said, therefore, that the bank could not accept the document as a valid satisfaction of the 1988 lien. Douglas Crane said this in a formal letter. He said it in writing. He had not, before writing it, requested the 1991 general ledger from his client's own archived records. At a deposition 4 months later, when Ruth Ann Farley asked Douglas Crane directly whether he had reviewed the bank's 1991 payment ledger before advising his client to reject the satisfaction document, he said that his review had focused on the document itself. He said this in a conference room in Oxford, in front of a court reporter and Tom Reardon and Tom's daughter, who had driven up from Coffeyville to be there. He smiled when he said it. He said, "I think you'll find we had quite sufficient reason." Tom looked at him. He said nothing. Ruth Ann Farley had practiced civil and property law in Water Valley for 21 years. Tom called her the afternoon the bank's letter arrived. She read it that evening. She said she needed to see the satisfaction document in person. He brought it the next morning. She read it front to back without speaking. She looked at the signature. She set it down. She said, "They're saying the signature doesn't match, but they have a ledger. Every bank has a payment ledger. If Gerald Wofford processed a $47,000 payoff on September 14, 1991, it will be in that ledger with his initials, regardless of what happened to the satisfaction copy." She filed suit in Yalobusha County Circuit Court within 10 days. Wrongful refusal to release a validly satisfied lien. Declaratory relief and damages. Discovery produced the ledger. The 1991 General Ledger of First Southern Agricultural Bank, reconstructed from the archived records that had survived all 3 acquisitions, showed an entry dated September 14, 1991. $4,388 received, applied to loan 88-4471TRE, account balance brought to 0, final payment notation, processed by G. Wofford. Same loan number as the satisfaction document Douglas Crane had called invalid. Same date, same officer. The bank's own records showed Gerald Wofford closing out loan 88-4471-trade on the same day his signature appeared on a document the bank was prepared to argue before a jury had never been properly executed. Ruth Ann called Tom when the ledger arrived. She said, "Their own ledger shows the payoff. Same date, same amount, same officer. Tom said, I know. She said, they're going to have a very difficult day in front of a jury. Before the trial date, Douglas Crane called Ruth Ann with a settlement offer, $22,000. He described it as a goodwill resolution given the complexity of historical document authentication questions. Ruth Ann relayed the offer to Tom. Tom said, what did the blocked sale cost me? Ruth Ann said the 12-acre sale to Dale Putnam had fallen through at $91,200. The lien's continued presence had also affected the appraised value of the remaining 71 acres. Tom said, tell them no. The trial was in Yalobusha County Circuit Court on a Tuesday in March, 6 months after Ruth Ann filed. The courtroom was on the second floor of the courthouse in Water Valley, wood-paneled walls, an American flag in the corner. The jury was 12 people. 9 of them were from farming families. Douglas Crane opened for 28 minutes. He argued that the satisfaction document was of uncertain provenance. He said Gerald Wofford's authenticated signature specimens from bank records did not match the signature on Tom's document. He said a document of unverified validity could not legally extinguish a properly recorded lien. He used the phrase legacy artifact twice. He was organized and confident and almost convincing. He was also the attorney who had not pulled the 1991 ledger before advising his client to call the document invalid. Ruth Ann placed the ledger entry on the projector. Loan 88-4471-TRE, September 14, 1991, $4,388. Processed by G. Wofford. Balance, 0. She placed the satisfaction document beside it on the screen. Same loan number, same date, same officer's initials. She said 2 sentences. She said, the bank's own ledger records a final payment processed by Gerald Wofford on September 14, 1991. The same date, the same loan number, the same officer as the document Douglas Crane called a legacy artifact. She said, the bank cannot explain why their own records corroborate a signature they told this jury is invalid. She called Gerald Wofford's son, Raymond, who was 58 years old and had worked 11 years alongside his father at First Southern before Gerald retired. Raymond looked at the satisfaction document for 30 seconds. He said, that's my father's signature. He said, he wrote his capital G that way his whole life. I'd know it anywhere. The jury deliberated for 2 hours and 44 minutes. They found for Thomas Reardon on all counts. Compensatory damages, $91,200, the value of the blocked land sale. Punitive damages for the bank's refusal to honor a documented satisfaction while possessing confirming ledger records, $96,000. Total, $187,200. Douglas Crane did not look at Tom when the verdict was read. Tom drove home alone. He stopped at the gas station on the edge of Water Valley and bought a cup of coffee. He stood at the counter for a few minutes. The woman at the register asked how his cattle were doing. He said fine. He paid and left. He drove the county roads he had driven for 34 years, past the Putnam place, past the grove where the fence had gone down in the ice storm of 2009, past the south field where the creek ran shallow every August. He parked in his usual spot. He went inside. He went to the spare bedroom, Martha's filing cabinet. He maintained it the way she had maintained it because he had never figured out how to stop. He took the envelope from his shirt pocket. He had carried the satisfaction document in his shirt pocket through the entire trial day, and he unfolded it one more time at the cabinet. He read it. September 14, 1991, $47,000, loan 884471 TRE, paid in full. Gerald Wofford's signature at the bottom, the G looping exactly the way Raymond had said. He folded it along the original creases. He slid it back into the envelope. He returned it to the 1991 folder in its place, where Martha had filed it 31 years ago. He closed the drawer. Then he went outside to check the cattle before dark. A debt was paid on September 14, 1991. A woman folded the proof of that payment in thirds, labeled an envelope in blue pen, and filed it where it could be found. She died in 2019 without knowing if it would ever need to be found. It needed to be found 3 years later. It was in the drawer where she had put it. A bank called it a legacy artifact. A jury of 12 people, 9 of them, from farming families, took 2 hours and 44 minutes to disagree. Stories like this one don't get told often enough. The people who deserve them told are usually too busy keeping their land to tell them. Subscribe, and we'll keep telling them. Next time, a 72-year-old woman in Pickens County, Alabama, receives a letter from a pipeline company claiming an easement her late husband signed in 1987 gives them the right to run a 20-inch gas line through her best field. What she finds written in his handwriting on the back of the easement changes everything. We'll see you there.